So we're pastors who stick cameras in our faces. What do our church members think about that? That's on today's episode.
Welcome to the Vlog Pastors Podcast, a podcast all about the stories and strategies of sharing God's love in the digital world. Now, here are two pastors that love to put a camera in their face and walk around in public. They are the Andy Taylor and Barney Fife of digital ministry, JARROD Brown and Joshua Verwers.
Welcome back to the Vlog Pastors Podcast. I am Joshua Verwers.
And I am JARROD Brown, and this is episode 56.
And whether you're listening to us on your favorite app or you are checking out the replay over here on the YouTube channel, we just want to thank you so much for joining us live.
And remember, you can influence the conversation every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. Hop in the comments, and you can guide this ship.
That's right. And speaking about how we're guiding this ship, that is actually what is happening today, because on today's episode, we're actually going to be answering a question that we received from Tomlinson Road. And he had basically said, I want to hear you talk about when and how your digital ministry crosses over with your ministry position at church. What does it look like? What do your church members think about it? And so that's what we're doing. We're going to talk, when does our digital ministry intersect with our roles at church? What does that crossover between vlogger and pastor look like? And what do our church members think of our social media efforts? Also, for those that are in the live stream crew and joining us here live, drop your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions, or maybe some clarifying questions in the comments below, and we'll be getting to that throughout the show. So I think to start off, JARROD, when does our digital ministry actually intersect with our ministry roles at church? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't really know. What's fun is if you are hopping on here at 10:30 in the AM, we have a pre-show, and I'm using my air quotes here. We have a pre-show where we talk about whatever comes up, and we were kind of kicking around some stuff about cameras and audio and when it works at church and when it doesn't. And I would say when the digital ministry overlaps the physical church is I've seen so many upgrades from being a part of a YouTube channel or, putting out media on Facebook. So everything from like just the quality of the gear, and wanting to upgrade from a CD. I believe John in the comments earlier was like, yeah, we still put out CD-ROMs. It was like, oh my word. Yeah, we did too. I remember having to copy the disc over and over and over and hand them out, to the folks who were there. And that's something that I don't enjoy so much. So I would say upgrades have taken place in gear. We've gone online. We went from making the old school days like an MP3 to now, podcast episodes, and we do video when we can, when that works out. And my ministry is to, for some reasons, I'm a small church pastor, is to come in there and make it happen. On top of getting ready for the sermon and meeting with people and praying and all of the things, it's like make sure the live stream goes off without a hitch, whilst training some young lad who may show up or lady who may show up to church and may not. The sound people now have video people, now has a video crew. So the digital side has influenced it in that there are seemingly higher standards on my end because I want to offer more to people because I know where they natively are. Because I know where I am outside of church, or if I'm not there on a given Sunday. If they want to catch up on things, it's no longer a CD-ROM. It's a live stream or a podcast or a video that you listen to, which was another little takeaway from the pre-show. So motivate you to get here early for the first 50 minutes today.
we definitely went long on that. And, I'm kind of in that same boat with you because that has probably been one of the biggest things where the digital ministry really helped out the physical ministry in the fact that, like, I think back on COVID and when everything was going down and you've had this mad scramble where everybody was out there and they're like, well, what are we going to do? And how are we going to get this? And they're trying to get, like the Cam Link to be able to do some streaming from home.
God.
And here I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I've already got like 2 Cam Links. Yeah. And so then it was like, pawning that off. And then I think I even collected one from someone else that they were, just that network that I had, that somebody else had one. It was like, yeah, I'll take that, because I knew somebody else that was going to need it. And it's like, absolutely, we'll start to get that stuff. So I went from having my own two to giving somebody one to then grabbing a second one, and then wound up giving that one away, and then finally got myself another. Plus all of this gear. And like, I remember right at COVID, my wife had kind of joked, and she's like, we would have paid off our house with all the money you've spent on your gear. And I'm like, no, There's no way. She's like, how about you start figuring it all out? And I was like, bet, we're going to do that. So I started looking. $14,000.
She's right.
She was right. And I was like, yep. But small church ministry, like that came out of my pocket. And at the time I could afford that. Our church wouldn't have been able to afford that. And so now our church was benefiting from all this extra gear. And even now, like we're just uploading the audio for the sermons, but it's good audio. Like they're getting good quality audio, and they're able to listen to this. And because I've got the equipment that I've wound up using, all of that stuff really kind of figures into where I've done this, and I've put in the extra effort and the time. So now the local church, my local in-person ministry, they're really benefiting from that.
Yeah. Another
place where it starts to intersect, and I would say from watching the abundance of vlogs that you've been making recently, like I finally noticed something. Like earlier in the year, I think I had overtaken you in the amount of videos uploaded to my channel, and then I just noticed that you have overtaken me. So it's like
we're gonna battle it out, are we?
We're battling it out on the who can create the most videos, which I think you're actually going to be winning that one.
Here's the thing about Josh. If you don't know, Josh will take a month, which you've noticed. He'll take a month. He'll take a year. He'll take 6 months. It doesn't matter. The time it's irrelevant to plan out a system. And once the system is in place, he may not have uploaded at all in that time period, but when it is in place, it's over. And he will just grind that system out until he's like, nah, it's broken somehow. And then he'll go back into the cave and he'll fix it and make it better. It's really impressive, man. That's why it's like, it doesn't matter. I may get ahead right now, but then here in just a minute, you're going to find a system and go, boom.
It goes through waves. It definitely goes through waves. But the abundance of vlogs that you've made, I've seen another area where our digital and physical ministries intersect. And when that happens is more prominent in your vlogs than it is in my vlogs, because one of the recurring segments, one of the recurring scenes, I'll put it that way. I'm thinking like Jerry Seinfeld, the Seinfeld show.
Sure.
Where you've got like the
Kramer's apartment or something.
You got Kramer's apartment. You got the diner scene. You've got Jared's diner scene. It maybe not is a diner scene. It's probably more Kramer's apartment because it doesn't happen all the time, but it's recurring and you recognize it. Rev Table.
Yep.
That's one of those things that like you've seen that where, and you do that. You do a really good job on that, where it does start to intersect in showing, here's some of the physical ministry that we've got. And it's a part of it. It's not like there's, it's not like it's any different. You're not just showing, it's not for the vlog or anything. It's an actual intersection. It's like, this is what the physical ministry is doing. Here's how the digital ministry is able to then kind of benefit off that. Like the flip side of what we were just talking about, where we created these digital ministries. We made all of this extra effort to buy up all of this gear, learn these skills, develop those skills. And now we're able to come in and offer all of our skill set and our equipment to our church free of cost, which would cost them thousands if they had to pay for it. So we're able to do that. The church is benefiting. But now, as vloggers, we need some content. And occasionally, we're just gonna roll the camera.
What's cool is, and I don't know if this is gonna go too far in the question, but like I've been trying to recently, as I'm sure you have too, just document what's going on in my world. And there's conversations that I can't allow access to because they're private. I get it. But the rest of it, when we're, Rev Table, cruising around with somebody in town, just trying to let the cameras roll a smidge. And it's had an effect on the congregation, especially some of those core key members, who will be at Rev Table or whatnot. One of the guys we were up in Colorado and we were walking into a Walmart. We were on mission this last week, and we're walking into a Walmart, and he says, "Who do you think you are?" Because I'm vlogging. He says, "Who do you think you are? You think you're a 25-year-old YouTuber or something?" And it's like, sick burn, dude. Yeah, you got me. Because I'm like, I'm a 30-something-year-old YouTuber.
Right.
It's even better than that. And he goes, "Man, I'm just kidding. I think it's so stinking cool." He's like, "I want to be a part of, like, I want to be, like, if I had the, personality," is what he said.
Yeah.
But if he had the skill set, he would be involved in it as well. And that's what we bring to the table. So what I've noticed is I'm hauling this camera around, just setting it up in the background, but they're asking to be a part now. Like they want to learn some things. They want to learn what the camera's set at. They want to learn what we talk about, how we craft a video. And it's like, because that's part of what I feel like is a basic skill level in this new modern world. You kind of have to have some level of video skills. And it's non-threatening. The more that I whip, where's the frame? The more that I whip the old camera out. The more that I break my camera, and yeah.
Oh, I'm dead. For those just listening to the replay of this, you missed Jared trying to pull up his iPhone to show the camera, and it went flying all over the place. Man,
Speed, young lad.
that was good. That one's gonna get clipped for sure.
So they're seeing the non-threatening element of the cell phone. Just don't break your new cell phone. I have no idea where it went. I heard crash, boom, bang. So I'm guessing there's pieces involved.
That's
anyway. So just wanting to be involved, wanting to learn skill, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like there's an intersection there. And what I think, Josh, is we've done the time. We've put in the work to learn how these cool little things function. Like we're filming and we know ISO, we know aperture, we know f-stops, we know tripods, how they work, we know lighting, we know all of these little elements that are going to help them not have to scour YouTube. So we're training a little batch of spirit-filled Jesus lovers who have a skill set that can go out into the world and reproduce a story. And it's like I feel like we're giving them a huge leg up in this, at least those who are interested. What do you think?
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that was something I hadn't even thought about. The fact that we are sharing that information, and it's causing a little bit of that training. It's funny because that wasn't something that I had actually thought about going into this and thinking about answering the question. Like, when does this happen? I hadn't thought about it, but it does happen that way. Like, now I can think back 3 or 4 people in our church specifically that had questions about YouTube, had questions about cameras and gear, and they are now using it, and it's for like their own personal business or for their own storytelling that they're doing. And it's just kind of fascinating because I hadn't thought about that. Like, these were people in our church that were genuinely curious about it. And then, okay, let's start doing that. And then it goes even beyond that, where now all of a sudden I've got kids. And like, I think as a pastor with kids, and you've got all the preacher's kids, that thought, the theory, the all of the struggles that can come with that from their side, where they're forced into ministry to do stuff. And they do have to do things, but at the same time, I'm able to now, because I've learned more about technology and where the youth are kind of leaning into the technology. How do I start helping my kids develop skills that they can then use for ministry purposes? Not just for their own, enjoyment, but how does it go beyond that? And that's something that I hadn't thought about, but that is where this physical ministry and that digital ministry, they really start to cross over. They meet, They intersect at that moment where it's like, here are those skills, and here's how you can use those. And then let's take it a step further, because you've seen how Dad has used those to further the kingdom.
Yeah.
So how can you use them with the giftings, the anointings, the skills, your God-given abilities? How can you use these to help further that, calling that you've got on your life?
Right.
It's just it's cool to see that, of just not just the family, but the church family.
Right.
They're able to all really benefit from this crossover.
And I think it's neat that, they may say, I don't want to do what you do. I don't want to be as blatant about, my faith. I don't, the Jesus element. I don't want to, be upfront, but I want to like sneak it in, cars. And the point being that I think we said this a couple years ago, or however long it's been since the first episode of this show, but we're like, everybody wants to watch YouTube, digital ministry, whatever.
Right.
TikTok nowadays. Back in the day, it was YouTube. The new generation wants to be a YouTuber. That's the modern day rock star, TV star type thing, whether you like it or not, whether it's a good thing or bad thing. And so there's a innate desire, maybe not innate, but there is an underlying desire that pushes them towards us in that physical side. Even so much as people who have seen me through a vlog somehow in town that I don't know as well, they've seen enough that they feel like they know me. Kind of like when we watch Casey, we feel like we've been a part of Casey's tribe, and we feel like we know him a little bit. They'll come up and they'll talk to me and they'll say, "Hey, do you remember when this happened?" Or I'll be explaining something, and I never know how much they know because they kind of tip off that they've watched a little bit of my stuff, and it makes an interesting encounter with your local officials and the guy at the Dairy Queen kind of a thing. It's like, oh, they've taken an interest, and then when you're there in person, and they want to say hello, and there's already a draw and a connection, you're like, oh Lord, this is an underhanded pitch. Baseball term for anybody out there who doesn't sports. This is an underhanded pitch right here. We're gonna knock this out of the park. How do you want to use this moment?
Yeah. And I think that's another point of intersection there where we talk about others in the community that are coming up, and it's really just it's the other network that we have, whether it's local community. I've even seen it with other pastors. Other pastors, ministry leaders that I know outside of the online space. Like, they're not people that I met on the internet. These are people I've met in person at other churches or other conferences, other pastors' meetings. And all of a sudden they see what I'm doing because, they've, the personal ministry became or the personal relationship, it turned into a Facebook friendship. And all of a sudden they see what I'm doing and they're like, hey, I'd be interested in doing something like that at our church. Could you help me? Could you give me some thoughts? Could you give me some advice? Even to the point where our ministry association, like the one I'm in, they wound up having me come and speak about social media. And at our annual conference, they wanted me to share that. So like the network I've got, all these relationships, they saw what I was doing. They're like, hey, this is definitely a gap that we have that you're going to be able to help fill. Can you come? Can you share this thing? Yeah. And that then led to even more, conversations, more help. It's kind of interesting, as we're talking through this, as we're kind of answering, what Zach had asked with, what does that intersection look like? When does this happen? I think it happens more often than I realized it would happen. Like, I thought it would be very separate, but it's not as separate as I thought it would. And over time, it can really even kind of intersected.
It can even be targeted, don't you feel like? Because when I hopped on YouTube, I was thinking, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the heads are down. That's where people's attention is. I want to get out there. And I knew it probably wasn't going to be for my young adult group, although that's where my heart was at the time. It was probably going to be out amongst wherever God, found highlighted somebody's mind, click on the thumbnail and away we would go. But that's kind of like the widespread scattering seed type thing. There's also like an intentionality that you can use in your local community where I'm just now tapping into this. I've been anti ads for a long time, anti just promotion of your church on Facebook. And I think I told you guys about this last week, but I found a guy who said, listen, do ministry, not marketing. And so I took that to heart, and I found something that I wanted to do. And so I'll just tell you about it. Jesse and I, we hopped on cell phone vertical. We said, "Hey, Stephenville, we want to pray for you. Are you depressed? Are you dark? Are you dealing with discouragement? You have these things going on in your world? If this is so, we know somebody. We know the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he wants to meet you where you're at, and he wants to love on you. Let us pray for you. Let us bring your prayer concerns, your life in before him." And that's it. We love you. Let's get started right now. And that has been targeted to, how you can do in Facebook. That's this area right here within 10, 15 miles of where we live. And we just pump it out every day. And I thought I would catch all sorts of hate and stuff because this is the digital side, or all
Right.
sorts of panhandlers because we have quite a bit of that going on in our area of, "Hey, I got a $300 cell phone bill that, I just need it taken care of. The electricity's going to get shut off tomorrow," whatever it is. And it really hasn't been. I spend a significant portion of, I won't say time, but there's a significant portion of my day carved out to bringing these legitimate concerns before the Lord. I mean, horrific things in our community, and it's reaching, this is grace to God type stuff. It's reaching people who are unchurched, who are dark, discouraged, depressed, all the things that I mentioned, and they need hope. And it's like, "Oh Lord, okay," and it's targeted. And so they're also asking questions like, where are you? Where is this? Where are you guys? What's happening? And I invite them to church on Sunday. It's like, "Hey, I'll meet you there." I couldn't this week, but it's like, "I'll meet you there." Or so and so will be there, ready. They'll be at the door, ready to meet you and ready to pray for you, ready to connect. It's been something special, man, and that's tangible here in my area, and I think that we can widespread it, do what we're called to do on the old YouTubes and stuff, but then we can be precise and say this is what's on the heart of God. And I just happen to put something secular, an ad behind it, because I need it to go to these people. It's on the heart of God, so I'm going to put my money behind it and drive it home to whoever these people are, and let Facebook sort it out. Let the Lord and Facebook
Figure that out
for us. And it's effective so far.
Yeah. I like that because there is a big difference between digital ministry and digital marketing. Ministry and marketing, there's a big thing, like where ministry is all about going to the people and meeting them where they're at and serving their needs. Yeah. Whereas marketing is all about getting people where they're at to come to in. You.
Yep.
And so it's the difference. And I think both are necessary at times. Both can be very valuable. At times, it's trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing? And I think part of it is so much of the church has always been inward focused, looking at, we've got to get people here, we've got to get people here, we got to get people here. And I just sat there and I'm like, but what about when Jesus told us to go out there?
That's right.
Like it's not just in here. Yes, we're not to forsake the assembly of ourselves together. We're supposed to gather even more as we see that day of his return approaching. But we're also told to go out. That's where meet them where they're at, because it's what Jesus did. Like he met them and then he brought them in. So that's kind of where, going out into the fields, gathering it up, and then bringing it back in. So it requires both. Like you've got to be able to do both. And I've probably done, when it comes to ads and stuff, I probably use that more for marketing than ministry. I did wind up doing one of our vlog sermons, and I think it was an Easter sermon, where I wound up promoting that thing. And spent the ads on it. And it was something that we had already kind of staged and ran. So even that morning, it was already getting the push. It was going out there. But then I did another one where it was all marketing, but wasn't for our church. Same thing, grabbed a phone, pulled it up, and it was like, hey, this Sunday, it was another Easter, and it was like, we got Easter Sunday. Love for you to be able to meet and worship with your brothers and sisters in Christ to celebrate the resurrection of our Lord. But we're not your cup of coffee. We're not your cup of tea. That's fine. And I linked and tagged every area church in that. Check out one of them below because they might be doing it too. And it was the funniest part about that was one of the local churches, they actually reached out to us and said, please remove our name and untag us from this. We don't want any association with you.
That's the best.
And I was like, you're welcome. But there were other churches that were like, oh, thank you for doing that. And then afterwards, like a month later, asking, hey, did anybody show up? Did you ask anybody where they came? And hearing there were dozens of people, different churches that showed up to other churches. Nobody saw that and showed up to our church. And it was like, so we did it, but it wasn't just for us. It was really to further the kingdom too. And it was to not just benefit us, but to help benefit others and to benefit the body as a whole. But I mean, that was one of those early on where it was just like, all right, we're just going to try some stuff and see what happens. And I think that may be one of those other things that when I think about, this next part of this question where it's like, what does that crossover between vlogger and pastor look like? Like, what does that crossover between a content creator and a sermon prepper, like, what does that look like when we actually do it? And for me, it looks like me taking things and throwing it against the wall to seeing what sticks. like it's like,
which is funny because maybe to you that's what that looks like, but to me, I would look at your process and say, oh, it's very methodical. Because small plug here, there might be something coming out, or maybe some I don't know how he's going to package it, but some digital content that has a structure in how he creates his vlogs, which is now what I understand how you create your sermons as well, and it's very structured. It has it has the hooks, it has the introduction, it has the reattacks.
So it's very, very structured, but that structure has come from throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what works.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to do whatever I can do. I don't know. I don't have it figured out. But I'm not going to try to figure it all out. Instead, I'm just going to do stuff. And that's where that comes from ministry. Like, that comes from ministry because I didn't know how to preach. Like, I knew how to speak. I had done a lot of extemporaneous speaking and public speaking, and I had done a ton of that, but I didn't know how to actually present the word in the way that God had created me to do it. So what that took was me just trying stuff. And a lot of it required me almost mimicking, imitating other ministers that I had seen, picking up little things like, oh, I like what they did here. And then what if I try something like that? And then realize, oh, yeah, I don't like that. Like, that doesn't feel like me. It feels like them, but it's not me. So it's a lot of trial and error. And that's where it's like, because I learned that in my physical ministry of just trial and error, keep trying. You're constantly trying to improve everything 1%, become just a little bit better, a little bit more effective. You're relying on the Holy Spirit to really kind of move through you, but you're also aware that sometimes the way he moves through you is through your senses and the things that you can pick up in the natural, because he's a teacher and he's trying to teach you these things. Bring back to your remembrance the things that you've already been taught. All of that stuff was like trial and error, slowly improve. That pulls over into vlogging, and it's like, okay, well, what have I learned? What have I seen? What impacts me? How do I do this? And even to the point that my sermons and my vlogs, they oftentimes have a very similar structure and format to them anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, it is odd how similar that format and that structure is. And then not even the format and the structure. If I'm answering this question of like, what does that crossover between vlogger and pastor look like? It looks like the message that I am preparing is the message that I'm preparing, whether it's for my digital ministry or my physical ministry. It's the message. Like, that's what I'm doing. So like last week I dropped a vlog that was kind of a follow-up on like the who am I? Who does God say that I am? And so it was like identity scriptures to really kind of help. The interesting part of that is like there was this moment that you and I, we had talked about, Jared, where I was like, you are not, your past. You are not your trauma. You are not your diagnosis. You are not who you were, because you are a new creation in Christ Jesus. And like that segment was part of this past Sunday's message, because I was talking about why we gather as a church. And one of the things that we're called to gather as a church, in Hebrews 10, is that it's to stir up love and good works. And then when you put that in context of the entire chapter of Hebrews 10 and even going into Hebrews 11, a little bit back into Hebrews 9, you see that what we're doing is we're reminding people that we're a messy people, and then we're really messy together, but it's a mess worth making because Jesus is the one that straightens out and cleans all of our mess. And we have to remind each other of these things. And so that's where it's like, I was working on this vlog, like, because the initial idea was, oh, this is going to be for a vlog. And then God's like, no, this is beyond the vlog. This is for the church. Like it expanded where it was so much more. So what does that crossover look like? That's what it looks like. I'm often getting one of these messages and I'm like, all right, God, this is the message you're putting on my heart. Who is this for? I want to know, okay, what is he saying and who is he saying it to? Now, that's not always the same. It's not always the physical church and the digital church, or the digital ministry. It's not the same audience all the time, but a lot of times it is, because a lot of times that's also what he's just putting on my heart for me, and then it's just ministering out of that overflow. What does that crossover look like for you between pastor and blogger? Like when that actually happens, what does that look like? I mean, beyond Rev Table.
Yeah, I'm still refining that, because there's so many similarities, like you said. Like the vlog is the sermon in a way, and God's preparing my heart. I look at it like this. I look at the vlog as the soup and all the ingredients that are going into it, and the sermon that the people get to witness on Sunday is not polished, but it's the overflow. It's the spiritual nuggets that have been kind of collected over the course of the previous couple of weeks or whatever it's been to get to that point, and the encounters and the experiences. And whenever you pair the two together, it's like, oh, it makes a whole lot more sense. It's like the behind the scenes and then the main feature film type of a deal. But I've also noticed that how do you say it? Vlog like a pastor like a vlogger, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I learned you just pick up things. You realize attention spans and stuff. And it made a whole lot more sense because, as we've mentioned many times over, I like to, British style TV, develop the characters and go really, really slowly and make sure you make a couple, references and then do callbacks later on in the sermon. And nobody has time for that in our modern culture. They just don't. I need them to get what God said. And it has forced me as a pastor to, I may walk up there and say the thing that cannot be forgotten. And I usually say, hey, dessert first. You can fall asleep in just a second if you have to, fight it. But here is what you have to know. If you leave here with nothing else, this is what the Lord says. And I'll drop that right there. And to me, that in a way is a hook.
Yep.
It serves as a hook. And then we can talk about it. We can do all the shenanigans, JARROD style of just being real and animated before him as God brings revelation in the moment and what's been honed out through the text. And on the vlog side, it's like just setting up the camera and letting it roll as the Lord encounters me and Jessie throughout the week. And that's the part that I want to get better at. Honestly, I feel like the sermon and the church side of things kind of works itself out. It's the vlogging part where sometimes we'll tell a story about a computer that gets coffee spilled on it, and it's like, I want to get a little bit better at that, because what I was trying to say was a little snippet of where I had a frustrating moment that I thought was going to ruin the rest of my day, and I got way too heated about ruining my computer and stuff. It was like, oh, no. It really was a minor thing. It was really just such an insignificant piece of the overall day and what God was doing, what he was saying. And yes, it needed to be addressed, but like one little hiccup in the road isn't the whole deal. And I don't think I communicated that. So I'm still learning in both fields. And I think they overlap because I'm using one to kind of grow in the other. And whenever one's, like the sermon side or whatever is suffering a little bit or could be better, like you were talking about the 1% increase, then I can take that and grow there and go, oh yeah, this would be a great idea for a vlog style, a better
Right.
storytelling in my a vlog style. Because I feel like at its core, maybe this is not all pastors, but for sure it's me. The Lord's spoken over me that I'm a storyteller. It's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to tell His story, and His
Yeah.
story through me, His story through Jesse, His story through the church. I'm literally reading His story sometimes, just out loud, in front of people. Like I am to tell His story and do it well. So I want to be as equipped as divine and humanly possible to communicate those messages. And they overlap. They really, really do, as
Yeah.
you know.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. There is a lot of overlap in there. I want to jump into some of the comments that we've got
Yeah.
here in the chat, and then one more final spin-off question on this. So I was looking up through here. Yeah, John was talking about that is something too about how small church pastors end up buying stuff for themselves to use at the church also, but the church body's the one that benefits.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Vaughn Sanders Ministry saying facts. Facts for sure. Living in the Gap saying my personal digital ministry grew out of trying to grow our church's media ministry. I wanted to take it home and help people, not just on Sunday and Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Very, very good. Vaughn Sanders saying digital and physical ministry are fairly separate for me. My church couldn't care less. It might be different if I did more of a vlog style and documentation. That's a little interesting to me. And I'll get in. I want to do a callback on this one because
Yes.
there's something that
We need to answer that. Yeah.
it kind of hit me with. He said he was thinking about running some prayer ads like that. Glad to know that it's effective. So that
It
was
is
very good.
extremely effective. Now, I don't know the size of your area, so I don't know what kind of response you're going to get. So you may need a team to do it properly so that you're praying for people. Or, I don't know. I don't want to give you the results first, but I do know that it's definitely not a numbers thing. And like Josh was saying, it's not a come to church thing because these people are having real issues.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And the invitation is just for prayer. And I found that I think it's because there's not an ask. There's not an ask to come to church. This is a ministry
Right.
endeavor. I want to pray for you. I have value being added here. Let's just get in the presence of the Lord together.
Yeah.
So be prepared. I just need to preface that. Be prepared.
That's good. And it was actually the prayer idea of doing more online prayer was something I've been really tossing around myself. And where do I post that? What does that look like? And for me, it was even going beyond just local church. Like I was thinking, okay, what about for just the digital ministry? Just adding in prayer. What if I do that on a regular basis where it's like, hey, I'm here. Let me pray for you.
Yeah.
Or even, like with reels and shorts and, TikToks, what if it was just a prayer that God is putting on your heart for those that are struggling with a specific thing, and it can look like a blanket prayer, but oftentimes God is doing that, through us. He's just putting a specific prayer on our hearts, and all of a sudden He has a way of drawing that person in to hear that thing.
And a little tactics behind it. We're doing Messenger a lot, and we're doing some audio files back and forth so that like it's not just like, hey, we'll pray for you. We're praying for you,
Right.
and here is our prayer. Here's what it sounds like, or here's what it written out looks like, and it's a private message so that not everybody's in on that thing.
Yep.
And anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And that's one of those that for me, practically, we've done stuff like that in the past with the church, never running ads on that, but just like a generic post, hey, we'd love to be able to pray for you. Reach out to us, send us a DM. And even like now, there are still people in the church or people that I know that they'll just text me and they'll be like, hey, I could use some prayer, for this, that, or the other thing. And I'm either leaving a voice note or I'm just typing out the prayer. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually praying for
I
you.
am praying for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are times that it's like, busy at the moment. I will be praying. I'll hit you up later. And then, kind of at least there's a response and I remember that. John was saying, same as Vaughn, been thinking about doing that too. Need to walk out what we're hearing.
That was me, man. John, honestly, where that was birthed out of was I was thinking to myself, I'm like, there's more here. And if I can get out of the way, I have a particular skill set and calling. I have a skill set, number one, but I have a calling to this community, and I can do this. And now it's now legal. There's no longer churches don't post online. It's now accepted. So now I can post and add online, and nobody thinks it's not a turnoff anymore. So it's like, okay, let's do this, Lord. If I can get Jared out of the way and let you do what you need to do, and it's been productive.
Yeah. Vaughn saying, it took me a while to find my voice as a preacher, although that's still evolving. Also finding my YouTube voice too.
Oh, man.
Man, it is real. It's a development. And part of it is because when you're unfamiliar with stuff or you're new at stuff, the repetition, it requires practice. Yeah. John saying, preaching now is nothing like when I first started. People told me to stop trying to mimic anyone else. They want me to preach as me, and they are putting up with nerd jokes. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. My church hates it when I'm doing jokes, but that's because most of them don't even get my jokes, or I'll just sit there and wait for the joke to land. And if it still doesn't land, I'll be like, oh, that was a joke, by the way. Good to know it didn't work. And then just move on. But so the relatability that he's talking about, just being you,
yes,
that's something else that where the digital and physical ministry has really helped me. I was thinking about this because, when you and I met, I remember you saying that you were kind of shocked because what you see online is what you get in person. Mm-hmm. You thought, okay, maybe he's somebody different. You hear about all these YouTubers that have done that, and where it's like, no, they're putting on a facade. They're just a little bit different. No, I'm real. That's me. You're going to get what you're going to get. And that's kind of it. And that's the thing that my church gets, because I try to be extremely relatable. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. If I feel like I'm supposed to share it, I'm going to share it, and you're just going to get it. And you're either going to like it or you're not. And I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, I like that where he's saying, they want me to be me. And that may be something else that the YouTube and digital ministry has helped with, because it's helped me maybe confront naysayers and haters a little bit more often. And because of that, just realizing that their opinions don't really matter. So then it's when it comes to church, I'm just going to do what I do.
Well, if you've ever taken a speech class, you also know that you'll watch yourself back. They'll record some portion of it at some point, and you'll say, this is what it looks like. You say, or you get distracted, right, or whatever it is. They kind of pick it apart a little bit. And this is like that on just an infinite amount of steroids. And you kind of learn to, well, one, get rid of some of that stuff whenever you're editing and whatnot. But you just embrace who you are, because the faults and the flaws are actually the pieces that connect with people. And that's been the thing that's been communicated to me over and over again, that my weaknesses and sometimes my insecurities are the things that people go, they hang on to, because it makes you real. And that's kind of what I was appreciating about Joshua, is he has a very extroverted, over the top kind of personality. And I didn't know if he was putting on.
Right.
So I was concerned that whenever we met, he was just going to be, I don't know, more withdrawn or something. And I thought, well, is he a genuine guy? And so to meet him, and what you see wherever this is sitting right next to me is the exact same guy. If you meet in the coffee shop, he's going to go, hey,
right.
What's up, man? Good to see you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that is, now that's not to say that I'm that 100% of the time, but even if you watch the entirety of my vlogs, you'll see the moments that, I'm sharing real, where it's just nope, just not feeling it today. And I'll even share those. Now, they don't happen that often, because more often I'm just kind of up and at it. So that's kind of the way it is. Living in the Gap saying, I'm not the lead pastor, so my personal digital ministry was an attempt to push myself to minister the gospel beyond what I'm able to do at church. And I love that. It does. I think the digital ministry has really helped me, because it's made me go beyond what I'm normal and what I'm normally doing, what I'm used to doing, what I'm comfortable to doing. And because social media is so rapidly changing, like you've got to be quick to adapt, which is maybe one of the best things that local churches could learn, because local churches are usually stuck in their ways and they're holding on to their cassette tape recorders and not wanting to let go of them. So if we can push ourselves beyond that, it definitely does help.
Yeah, and we call it around here, we call it making a hand. You're making a hand. So you're getting experience. You're cutting your teeth in a platform. You're getting experience, and you'll be able to bring that to your church body as well and help.
For sure. Okay, so back to what Vaughn was saying, and this will kind of come in with our last little follow-up question here, which the question was, what do our church members think of our social media efforts?
Yes.
Which Vaughn is sitting there and he's saying, hey, my church couldn't care less. So here's where my follow-up is on this. And it's something I'm actually preparing for our church, hopefully for this Sunday, is kind of a State of the Union thing, where I know last year I had done like this digital ministry newsletter that I'd come out with, and it was basically just, here's an overview of what I've done. And I've shared a lot of that stuff online or even on my own Facebook page, but some of my church, they don't have any social media presence, any access to it, and they have no idea what I'm actually doing, other than somebody will like corner them in a parking lot and be like, hey, did you see this little TikTok that Pastor Josh shared? And then they'll show it to them and they're like, I don't know what I'm even watching. And then why is he even doing that? So I think what I'm kind of struggling through and what I'm trying to prep for our church is, kind of a State of the Union, basically an update on what am I actually doing and why am I doing it? And is it beneficial at all? Because I think that part of my church is like Vaughn's and they just couldn't care less, but it's not because there's no, willingness to care about it or support it. It's because they just have no clue what I'm even doing.
Yes.
Like they don't understand what that reach could look like. And then when I say, oh, I got, 100,000 views on Instagram in the last 30 days. What does that mean? Like they don't understand that. But when I start to, I pulled up a map because I checked all my analytics and I was like, here are the countries where my videos were viewed in the last 30 days. And then I pulled that up on a map and they see a visual representation of how the word that I was ministering online went all the way around the globe. Mm-hmm. Like it hit pretty much every continent except for South America and Antarctica. And so it was like, it went everywhere. And so it's reaching all of these places, and these aren't just views. Like these are people. And then when I started to share, like I did this with my grandma, I started to share some of the comments that I had. Like these are actual people. And this is how it's actually helping them and how it's ministering to them. Mm-hmm. She started to get it a little bit. And that's where I was sitting there thinking, my church, they could really care less, but is that because they just don't know? And if they don't know, if the physical ministry and the digital ministry work almost hand in hand a lot of the times, shouldn't they know what this is actually doing? And because there's so much of the physical ministry that does overflow into the digital ministry, because all that prep and all that word and all that knowledge and all the experience and all the relationships and just all of that, it does wind up coming out in a certain way. Wouldn't it be beneficial if they know, here's how that is actually working? Because it's what our local church is doing to really expand the reach. Like we had done a vision statement or a mission statement years ago, and it was about how we were going to be so full of faith that the power of God would impact the people and the places that we reach. And then it was like, okay, but where is that reach? And so when, I tell them, hey, I went on a missions trip, I went over to Kenya, and this is what happened. Oh, they loved it. They supported it. They were on board with it. They wanted to hear more about it. They were engaged. Hey, I'm going to Thailand. This is what I'm doing. This is where we're at. Right. Come back and give them the report. But I'm like, hey, I'm going into the digital world. They're like, what? What is that? And what does that mean? And what does that look like? And you've been doing it for like 4 years and you haven't given us really an update on what that actually entails,
Yeah.
but you keep doing it. That's where I'm thinking maybe they just don't know. And I'm saying maybe, although that's a rhetorical question because I know they don't know. Because their heart is, if somebody is sharing the word of God, if somebody is doing ministry, we care about that. It may not necessarily be our exact lane, but we care about that, and we want to know more about it and how are they doing, and things like that. So that's where it's like, I've got to do this. And I've had people actually recommend it. Like I explained with my grandma, and she's like, you need to show our church this.
Yeah.
Like I had no clue. And she's like, we had no clue. And then when they start to find out, because then some of them are like, well, so like, did the church buy all this equipment? No, I did. You did? Well, how'd you do that? I just did. Oh, well, here, let me give you something. It's like, okay, so they're going to want to go beyond just the support. And some of them have even asked, so how do we support you in doing what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Pray. Like, honestly, that's the biggest support that we need in doing what we're doing. Because like any ministry, it becomes a grind and it can become very disheartening at times. We've talked about that in recent episodes, like where there's low views and low turnout. It's like that can be discouraging. So we definitely need the prayerful support. But if they don't understand what's behind it, I mean, is it praying without having the heart in it? And they're like, I'm just praying because he said to pray, but I really don't know what I'm praying for. But when you hear about the need and the impact and the reach, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, now I really want to. What are your thoughts on that when it comes to like, what does your church think about it? Do they really know? Do they not know? Are they aware? Have you shared some of that?
Oh yeah, man. So of my churches, I love my church. They're so raw about things. I would say my church follows the trajectory, at least in awareness and being excited about my YouTube channel, as my YouTube channel did, or as my digital ministry, which is predominantly on YouTube. So in the beginning, I would say distantly curious as to what exactly you're doing online in this metaverse type thing before it was a metaverse, before it had a name. It's like, is anybody there? What are you speaking into the abyss? Why are you wasting your time? Why are you spending money? Like, and then you're bringing a camera up here, so we're not going to be on, right? Because
Right.
we don't really want to be a part of that. We don't get on. We don't do Facebook. We don't do whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we don't do it. No. So that was the beginning. Then there was a middle phase of growth and excitement about, hey, we've seen Jared's stuff and it's really good, and like people are on there and they're asking him questions and he's answering things and it's really exciting. And there's the other guy and they're going back and forth, and they got really excited there for a while, and then you change gears sometimes. So,
Right.
You watch somebody for a while and then you're like, yeah, okay, they're doing either the same thing or your interest shift, or
Yep.
life happens, whatever it is. And I would say the same thing has happened with the congregation in that in-between time where it's like, yeah, what's going on? Does he still do the YouTube thing? Cool. Yeah, hopefully he's reaching people, Lord bless him. Let's go. But not really interested, as long as they don't have to be in it. And then I would say in the last couple of weeks, there's some sort of resurgence that's going on in that. And part of that is just that whole concept of documenting.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing the camera with me because these people influence my life. God uses them to speak into it sometimes. I mean, from the rough diesel mechanic to the chef to the, they're
Yep.
put on camera, and sometimes they like to see themselves.
Right.
Like Kelly Wolf was telling KC that he was on. Yeah. She was like, I haven't watched you in months, but the other day, I was on there and I saw it was KC was on there. KC was like, I was on the show. Well, wait, was it just like for a sec? I didn't say anything stupid, did I? So then he hops on, and then everybody else hops on to see, well, we're in this thing. So we're characters in the show. And now, so the church kind of sees it as like, that's just a small representation of it. But that the rest of the church is like, okay, yeah, there's a digital ministry. Where it's driven home is when people start showing up at the door because of this digital ministry. And
Right.
if you want to drive home what you do matters and it's not just views, have people start showing up to the door to go, yeah, we Jared invited us. Facebook, we saw your Facebook ad. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this thing has legs. These numbers are people.
And that's something that we've seen a couple different times, and that's where like the couple that are at the church that are really bought in on this, even though they have no clue what's going on in this, it's because somebody new has shown up.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, I was watching Josh's vlog and, he did this one that really impacted me. And they're like, I have no idea what you're doing, Josh, but obviously it's having an impact. Where they can actually put a face with it is something. And then so for me to be able to show them, we've had people over the years that have come in because of this. Yes, they're local and they've got a relationship. So obviously because it's local, there's a bigger impact. But I was just recently looking through one of I think I did 100 subscriber special. So this would have been 4 years ago. And when I did that, I gave away a book, and it was to somebody that was not a Christian that wound up getting the book giveaway. And it was like the 5 love languages that I gave away because I had like an extra copy. And this individual was moving and really wanting to, start to get back into church, like grew up early on, but had no relationship and wasn't anywhere near us. So I knew some churches in the area of where he was going and started reaching out to those pastors to reach out to him and letting him know, hey, I'm going to send some people your way. And to help that connection, it was like, there can be a very tangible and real impact. It's not just online, but there are so many hours between Sundays and Wednesdays that we have in our lives. And if we're not doing stuff online and we're not adding that extra, it's just a void that the world is going to fill. And so it's like, there's a need, there's a big need. And at least, we're kind of those people that are like, well, here I am, send me.
That's
Like,
us.
don't know exactly what we're going to do, but we're going to have fun along the way.
I know we talk about it all the time, but so much more is caught than taught.
Yeah.
And if they want the full picture, which some of them do, they're now seeing Sunday's the trailer or Sunday's the feature film. And we got to see everything that went into, not everything, but we got to see some of the formative moments that help shape this thought, this nugget from the Lord, whatever.
Well, that was good. Vaughn's got one final one. He says, I agree. I am planning to help them understand the reach and the impact of digital ministry. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Vaughn, if there's anything that I'm ever sharing that you think would help to convey the reach of like, here's another pastor in the neighboring state, and here's what he's done in the last. Now, he's been at it longer than I have, but here's some of that. Feel free. And that goes for anybody. Like, if there's ever anything that I'm sharing out there on the interwebs, and I know it goes for Jared too, anything that he's sharing, man, if we're putting it out here on a public platform, use it. Take it.
Oh,
if it
absolutely.
can benefit at all, run with it. So, Jared, any other final shots, parting words you got on this topic for this episode as we wrap up episode number 56?
No, I've got a lingering thought of like, digital ministry is a tool in a way. I know it's a calling, but it's also it's a tool to, like Vaughn was saying, to reach people. It is evangelism, it's ministry, it's, you can find that's too far because of a lot of people. You can find your groove, we'll put it in, what you're called to do out there in digital ministry, and you can make a hand for the kingdom.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That's a good one. I like it. I think we'll pretty much wrap up on that note. This is going to wrap us up, the Vlog Pastors, for episode number 56 of the Vlog Pastors podcast. Make sure to give us a like or a subscribe or a follow or a rate or a review or whatever it is on whatever platform you're on. You can always catch the video replay on both YouTube at the Vlog Pastors channel, or even on Spotify. You can watch videos there. And you can listen to the audio on pretty much all the platforms that are out there. Join us next week, next Wednesday, 10:30 a.m., when we're going to be answering a question from Dean Lentini, and he says, I would love to hear y'all's wisdom on cultivating community, knowing when to block, how transparent to be with folks, and keeping people engaged, etc. That sounds like a good one that we're going to be filtering through, so that'll be fun. Join us next week. Until then, stay blessed, enjoy God's best, have a fantastic week.